Hello, everyone. As Nicole said, my name's Chris. I have been an environmental health and safety professional since about 2016, so I'm relatively new to the game. I received my undergrad in environmental and occupational health from Cal State Northridge, and I've worked in varying industries thus far, which include movie theater, aerospace, and most recently the food distribution, which is a combination of warehousing and trucking. My talk today is centered around risk management and how engagement plays a role in the safety of people in the workplace. You'll find that the details in the talk will hold true regardless of the industry you're in. We as EHS professionals are, for the most part, very scientific in our approach to safety. With good reason. The amount of data, regulations, numbers, meters, sensors, chemical, machinery, and everything in between that we work with require a robust and sound scientific approach to help curate a healthy and safe work environment. There is, however, a second element to this curation of safety in the workplace, if you will. EHS professionals know that safety is incredibly delicate, and we feel an enormous responsibility when it's placed in our care. The EHS field as a whole has made extraordinary strides across industries in rallying multiple professions and areas of expertise within and around an organization to understand the weight and scope of EHS within their respective operations. You find it difficult, for example, today to ask an employee at any level, ask them whether or not they think safety is important, and for them to say no. They won't dispute it. It's important. We know it's important. They know it's important. It's important. Why then, if it's so important, do their actions often say otherwise? Many of you, I'm sure, know what it is I'm talking about. Words and actions are at a disconnect. Safety is important. This is what I need to do, but they don't. And it is this point that I want to focus on. So terms like employee engagement and culture have recently grabbed hold of companies and organizations and are becoming the symbols and vehicles used to accomplish goals. Camaraderie, teamwork, a sense of togetherness, a joint mission, all these things are achieved by creating a culture through engagement. Now, I mentioned the science and logic piece we use in EHS a lot of times on the daily, but culture, and in our world, safety culture, is an undertaking that we've added to our list of expertise. Frankly, it has now become foundational. Arguably, everything else sits on top of it. With that in mind, we come to employee engagement. Employee engagement is the key to a successful safety program. This includes supervisors, managers, all the way up to executives and C-suite level. We have again made huge strides in this area, but the quote-unquote buy-in isn't always there. How do we get associates to want to engage rather than them feeling an obligation to engage? Remember, they know it's important, so what's the missing piece? Psychologists have long studied the link between emotion, behavior, and motivation. There's a clear link between them, and emotions can often be an overlooked component as being a driver of behavior. For example, if an employee is happy, they'll be motivated to achieve better performance. If they're unhappy, their performance will follow suit and likely decline. Also, take a second to think about the entertainment content we consume. Think about the methods used to entice political engagement. Think about the pleasant and unpleasant company that we keep. it's primarily driven by how it makes us feel. Take the COVID-19 pandemic, great example of how emotions can drive behavior. In March and the months that followed, there was an emotion that was driving a lot of the behaviors in the workplace, and that emotion was fear. So you want engagement in your safety programs, but beyond inspections, beyond the trainings, beyond the championing in programs, all crucial, all important, we must get to the heart of why employees choose to work safe. Because ultimately the choice must be made before the habits can develop. And the motivations behind those choices are driven by their emotions. One popular tool used in the EHS world that follows this principle is the Why I Work Safe display or board. This is just one tool that can be used to tap into the emotions of employees, which in turn will motivate them to engage and further build safety culture. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's simply a collection of the employees' why for working safely in the form of photos, and in today's world, with the tech we have, it can even be videos. I've personally used this tool and the results are near immediate. If employees have an emotional connection to their why, which can be anything, right? And that's what this collage that's up attempts to illustrate. Everyone is different. The most prominent why will typically be family, their kids, spouse, loved ones, or friends. This is ultimately the why. Ask yourself, what's the reason I've shown up to work today? What does it mean to make a living? At its most basic level, to have the means to do the things you want to do with the people you want to do them with. So the why can be hobbies, recreational activities, anything that is the motivation for staying healthy and safe at work. For me, for example, I like to do Spartan races. They're fun, challenging, and require me to be in one piece to be able to do them. If I get hurt at work, then I can't do that thing that I love to do. So I better focus on not getting hurt, not because my safety manager or my boss asked me to do a task a certain way or to participate in the safety program for better injury rates. It's because I want to do my Spartan races. I had a coworker once injure his back. It wasn't too severe, but it was bad enough that when I was following up with him, he said something that stuck with me. He said that he could not pick up and hold his newborn baby as a result of his injury because the pain was too much. Now, that is a powerful motivator to never get injured again. But we know that that kind of risk-averse behavior doesn't just happen. The thought occurred to me, had he had that realization before the injury, how would that have influenced his behavior, or at least his motivation to alter it? Realistically, that's not something the average person will think about when thinking about their health and safety in the workplace. So we as EHS professionals need to engage in a way to tap into that. When they have this emotional response to their safety, they'll be more likely to engage in the safety program. And ultimately, that'll lead to them doing the activities that will yield the real results, real daily results, the main one being having no incidents or injuries. So let's look at some numbers. This graph shows the OSHA recordable incident rate over a 19-month period, so nearly 2 years. You can see there at the beginning where rates hovered between 6 to 8. This is the point where I introduced an engagement-based safety program. specifically the engagement of executives, management, and supervision. Fast forward a year to a bit past the middle, and you can see the average incident rate start to decline. At the second half of this graph is where I introduced, along with management support, let's call it the emotion-based safety, to get more engagement from frontline workers. Specifically in this particular case, using the Why I Work Safe, which drove the incident rate even further down over the next 7-month period. To expand a bit more on engagement, it is of course a two-way street, right? You also need to give engagement. This piece we're well familiar with in EHS to some degree. I'll sometimes joke with my girlfriend that no one told me I'd be a therapist when I decided to get into EHS. This wasn't mentioned when I was taking those accident prevention courses, but it is an important piece. It's important to have emotional intelligence or EQ with engagement of employees, even from an EHS perspective. With good EQ, it'll help build on the understanding on the motives for behaviors, both the safe and the unsafe. And just to note, it's no coincidence that emotional intelligence is becoming a popular quality for many jobs. Companies more and more are trying to gauge the EQ of incoming talent, specifically those in management, and EHS is no different. The Why I Work Safe is just one example. I've also seen the leveraging of social media to create the same effect. And I do believe that innovations around these principles, using this tool and others like it, is the next frontier for EHS. With this approach and the engagement it fosters, it'll lead to those much needed activities. I have seen increases in hazard reporting, increases in the use of personal protective equipment, and increases in program championing, programs like Lockout Tagout. When you have that kind of engagement, your incident rates as a result are going to decline, and ultimately just an overall more successful safety program. So in closing, we have in this safety funnel two familiar components. Preparation, which is trainings, orientations, hazard recognition, execution, which is our investigations, mitigations, and corrective actions. And we add the third element, which is engagement from all parties, which will use the emotion, motivation, and behavior approach. With all these pieces coming together and using this personalization to safety, you'll have that foundation, you'll have results, and you'll have a more successful safety program. All right, and with that, thank you to everyone for attending this talk. Thank you to EHS Today and the Safety Leadership Conference organizers for the opportunity to give this talk today. It was a pleasure, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Christopher, for a great presentation. And let me now encourage you in the audience to interact with Christopher and each other in the Q&A chat to your right. Thank you.